Hi, today I'm going to share my opinion on the importance of critical thinking. Critical thinking affects and enhances every aspect of our lives, our professions, our academic achievement, and the direction that we take as a society. Critical thinking is necessary for us to develop a society that is rational, progressing, and humane. But what is critical thinking? Michael Scriven and Richard Paul define it like this: the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information as a guide to belief and action. So a couple of words there that I want to talk about. The first one is actively. You do critical thinking. It's not something that kind of happens to you or just happens by itself. You must be active in the creating of critical thinking in your own life, in your profession, etc. You're the one that has to do it, and you have to be active in doing it. The other one is a guide. Critical thinking guides us. It makes us do things differently because we process information in a different way. And therefore, when we think critically, we can make better choices. Another word that's, I think, interesting is belief, which I will address next. So what are the benefits of thinking critically? I think one of the first benefits is that you can replace in your kind of day-to-day discourse and the way you think and address things the word belief with the word think. And what I mean by this is the following. When you say, I believe X and Y, you're basically saying that you take X and Y to be true, although you don't have the information in front of you. You're kind of taking it on faith, I guess. Whereas if you say, I think X and Y, that kind of means you processed the information and came to that conclusion. You might still be wrong, but you took a different road to get to your opinion, right? Critical thinking is all about information. It's all about how you process information and how you get from point A to point B. And it's just a way of processing it in a disciplined manner. Now, Professor Honey from Frontiers in Psychology says the following about critical thinking in education. She says, I think all science educators could benefit from the strategies associated with critical thinking. It requires that students learn content along with an opportunity to practice the metacognitive strategies associated with critical thinking. So metacognitive, that's a very interesting word, and it's something I'd like to explore a little bit. Cognitive is basically something that comes in through your senses. Your cognate self. You see something, you hear something, you taste something, etc. But critical thinking goes beyond that. You have to, after you take in the information, you have to process it, analyze it, think about it a little more, if you will. Again, very important and very important to education. A great example of how critical thinking is important in education was proven by an experiment done by history professor P.A. Burkholder, which is called the Think Out Loud experiment. Now, the Think Out Loud experiment, basically what he did is he gathered a group of college professors and a group of college students in a classroom and gave them these exercises where they were supposed to historically analyze a certain period or certain event in history. Now, the college students, were giving ample time to research and get familiar with the material that they were analyzing, whereas the professors just saw it during the experiment. Now, the professors scored much higher in their analysis. Why? Because of their critical thinking skills that they had developed through years and years of academia. So this proves to us that critical thinking is actually even more important than the data itself, than the information itself. What we do with the information is more important than the information itself. Now, what are the dangers of not thinking critically? For this, I'd like to utilize an anonymous comment from a person that's on my Facebook. And this comment was on a Donald Trump video. And the comment went like this. It said, Trump doesn't give a blank. It starts with an F. He has no campaign contributors to answer to. I like that he says what he says and doesn't backtrack. Okay, interesting opinion. He says what he says and doesn't backtrack. Okay, so just to put this into context, let's remember Trump's words during his presidential announcement. He said, when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They are rapists. So, I mean, if we can even wrap our heads around the idea that the Mexican federal government is picking rapists and actively sending them to the U.S. as part of some maleficent plan. I mean, the profundity of the idiocy of this statement, the sheer stupidity of the statement, makes me hard to believe that somebody can actually say, hey, I like that he says what he says and doesn't backtrack. But what's happening here is that this person is not thinking critically. It only takes a little bit of mental exercise to say, hey, you know, here's a guy who's running for an office that requires the highest levels of diplomacy, both domestically and abroad. And he's talking about how a federal government is rounding up rapists to send them here. Not very bright, not very politically astute. It's just not a good idea. He's not a good candidate. He's not a good fit for the office. Might be a great fit for reality television because he's brash and, you know, that sells, but not a good diplomat, right? And the president has to be a good diplomat. So that's just the danger of not thinking critically. You as a society can take terrible decisions, because you're not thinking critically. In conclusion, I think that thinking critically is just a very, very positive, free, and readily available activity that we can all do to make all our lives better. Thank you.